Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Want to go ahead and keep our College Hoops off-season grade series going. Listen, we're going to get to football. I promise. I'll be blunt. There really hasn't been that much to talk about in the world of college football. But with media days ramping up, we're going to have plenty to discuss. But for now, we will focus on another one of our off-season grades pieces in college hoops. We've done them for several high-profile programs: Kentucky, Indiana, UConn, North Carolina, Arkansas, BYU. And today, we're going to talk a team that I am fascinated by and a program that I just truly believe is on the way up and in a hurry, and that's the Louisville Cardinals. And so listen, let's just start from the beginning. We don't need to relitigate and go over the Kenny Payne era. It did not end well. But by the way, it doesn't mean that Kenny Payne's not a good guy, that he won't be a good assistant coach at Arkansas. But he wasn't the guy. It was obvious early, and to the credit of the program, they moved on pretty quickly. 2 years, it wasn't happening. Time to go in another direction. They do, which brings us to the coaching search. And I guess if there's one criticism of the entire offseason at Louisville, coaching search was a little clunky. You think you're probably maybe in the mix for Scott Drew. You don't get him. Then you think you're in the mix. You're definitely going to get Dusty May. You don't get him. Becomes a little bit of a 2, 3, 4 day scramble. Is it going to be this guy, that guy? I remember there was even a little tiny buzz about Josh Schertz, a guy that I think is a rising coaching star at Indiana State. But you end up with Pat Kelsey, a guy that has built two programs, both Winthrop and Charleston, into NCAA tournament teams. And I got to say, once the hire became official, I loved it. And I think most Louisville fans were on board the second you heard him speak at his first press conference, because you could tell right away, this guy is energetic, full of life, built two different college basketball programs. And I think the other thing was just obviously grateful for the opportunity. I remember seeing a video a day or two after he got hired where he walks into his office for the first time. He says, "This is mine." And it's like, "Yeah, coach, that's yours." And you could tell the gratefulness, did I just make up a word? Gratefulness, the appreciativeness. I'm making up words left and right here, but the opportunity that was presented to him, you could see how excited he was. And then just like that, he hits the ground running. And to me, that's maybe one of the most impressive things, right? Because whenever you have a new head coach coming from the mid-major level, you just never know how a guy is going to handle that step up from the mid-major level. Is he going to be able to recruit at the highest levels? Is he going to be able to, in this NIL portal world, kind of get the high-profile portal kids, get the high-profile high school kids? Is he going to be able to handle NIL? Does he know the right people? Does he have the right contacts? Well, if this offseason is any indication, I think our guy's going to be just fine. First off, love that he brought a few pieces from that Charleston NCAA tournament team. Listen, these kids aren't going to be stars. But at the end of the day, what you want is guys who have been in your program, understand your culture, understand the day-to-day, and especially at a place like Louisville, where there really is nobody returning from last year, where you're really cleaning house, where you're really starting over. You have those kids that have followed you from Charleston, that are in your corner, that understand what you're about, that understand the work that goes into winning at the highest level. Well, he brings in several players from Charleston, most notably Rain Smith, who was his leading scorer, 13 points per game, Kobe Rogers, James Scott, a high upside big. And that is the foundation for what you're building. Not your best players, but guys that get what it's about, get what it takes to win at the highest level. From there, I thought Kelsey made a splash right away by adding Terrence Edwards from James Madison. If you watch this kid at James Madison, remember, James Madison was like a 20-plus win team, a 30-plus win team this year. They won at Michigan State early in the season. From there, they beat Wisconsin in the first round of the tournament. If you watch that game, he was probably the best player on the floor in that game. Coming off a year where he wins the Sun Belt Player of the Year, was a really, really good player at the mid-major plus level. It's not really mid-major at where he's coming from at James Madison. Really talented player, can play on the ball, can play off the ball, guy that averaged 17 a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, big guard, the exact kind of guy that everybody wanted that I think will be very good in ACC play. From there, you had a couple other very nice pieces. Javon Hadley, he's a kid that I really like a lot. And I'll tell you why I like him. He comes from Colorado. Why does that matter? No, we're not talking about Coach Prime and the Colorado football team. We're talking about Colorado basketball. But don't forget, Colorado had 3 dudes drafted, including 2 first-rounders this year, and Cody Williams, and Tristan Da Silva. To me, that matters because Javon Hadley, to quote the coach that wears blue in Kentucky, Javon Hadley understands the assignment. He's a guy that has played with stars, a guy that has played with first-round picks, a guy that has proven that he can get a veteran player that is comfortable playing a role. He comes to Louisville, averaged 11 points, 6 boards, 41% shooting from 3 as a 6'6" wing, two-way player, really good. Love that addition. Think to me, the one that it perked my ears up when I saw it, Chucky Hepburn, the guard from Wisconsin. And listen, this was one, if you just look at the stat sheet, Chucky Hepburn isn't going to overwhelm you because bluntly, his best season at Wisconsin was probably 2 years ago in 2022, 2023. That year, he averaged 12 points, 3.5 assists per game, 40% three-point shooting. The numbers down a little bit this year. Wisconsin was a better team, a deeper team. AJ Storr took a ton of shots, a ton of volume. And so the numbers dipped for Chucky Hepburn. But you're talking about a 3-year starter in the Big Ten at Wisconsin, multiple NCAA tournaments. This is just a dude that has played high-level college basketball that you need to win on a night-in, night-out basis in a place like the ACC. So that was the one that I just said, listen, don't look at the stats. Don't look at whatever. He, in my opinion, I think I had him as a top 30 or so transfer because he is a guy that has just been there, done it at the highest levels for a really good team. Beyond that, my boy Pat Kelsey did not slow down, replaced everybody on the roster. A couple other guys that stood out to me. First off, a guy that I think is a little bit underrated. Corin Johnson played at Washington. Super athletic, Seattle kid, another one. Didn't have huge stats on a bad team, but that dude has crazy athleticism, crazy talent, played on a bad team. You really, I guess it's because I live on the West Coast that I probably saw a little bit more of him. But if you weren't watching bad Pac-12 basketball, and I know most of you weren't, this isn't the kind of guy that would jump out at you. But as a sophomore this season, averaged 11 points, 2 boards, 3 assists per game, 37% three-point shooting. He's a little bit small, but I think when people see him, they're going to be like, that guy is really good. Where did he come from? So you add him. You then in the front court, I love these, well, really 3 pieces. I was going to say 2, but 3 pieces. You had Kayshawn Pryor from South Florida, 6'10" dude. How about this? 6'10", shot 36% from 3, 13 points, 8 boards per game. You also add Noah Waterman. I thought this was a very important addition. Noah Waterman, where did he come from? As I said, he played for that coach that's coaching down the road in Lexington at BYU. 6'10" forward, can step out and hit threes. And so you add 2 forwards that can hit threes. Then you add Abubakar Traore from Long Beach State. This was a dude that went for 14 and 50. This is I said this about another guy the other day. He puts the power in power forward. But look at all these pieces. By the way, then on top of everything else, and I know I'm going basically player for player here, but you get the point. You do add the Connie Roos kid, top 30 recruit who was committed to Juwan Howard in Michigan, ends up opening his commitment and committing to Louisville. And so when I look at what Pat Kelsey did, think about that. Replaced essentially an entire roster, but he did it with high-level guys out of the portal. He got his, high 4-star recruit. He proved that he can close on those guys. And you look at this team now, and I like it a lot. By the way, I should also mention this. I liked the fearlessness from Pat Kelsey in going after some really big names. Jaden Quaintance, the 5-star who was committed to Kentucky, ends up at Arizona State. There was a moment where they were going after Coleman Hawkins, but I also respect kind of the discipline of, if you believe the reports or, stuff that I've kind of heard, is that I think both of them were both asking for quite a bit, that Pat Kelsey wasn't comfortable with. And he's not going to overpay or whatever, whatever term you want to use in this NIL era for the splashy guy, for the guy that whatever. I like that he went after the big names, but he could also pull back and he said, I don't have to get this big name. I don't have to do this to prove myself or to do this or do that. If it's going to screw up my locker room, if it's going to screw up whatever, the NIL, I just really like the way he went about building this roster. And so you look at this team now, and a couple things stand out. The first, they are old and they are experienced. Okay, so listen, I know I've talked a lot about, Big Blue down in Lexington, Mark Pope, and all the veterans that he brought in. Pat Kelsey brought in a ton of dudes. It's worth noting. How about this? If my math is correct, and it might not be, not my strong suit, I'm pretty sure if you include the 3 guys that he brought from Charleston, he brought in 8 guys who played in the NCAA tournament this past year. So you talk about a program that has experience and knows what it takes to win, building a winning culture. It's not just about bringing in the best possible players. It's about bringing in dudes that know what it takes to win. Chucky Hepburn knows what it takes to win. Javon Hadley knows what it takes to win. Noah Waterman knows what it takes to win. Abubakar Traore knows what it takes to win. The Charleston guys know what it takes to win. So you have that. You have a bunch of guys, basically everybody on the roster except for Traore, that can all shoot threes. This is big. This is knowing who you are and how you want to play. Keep in mind, Charleston shot the 3rd most threes in all of college hoops last year. Number 2 was actually BYU, ironically enough. Number 4 was Alabama. So Pat Kelsey's team shot more threes last year than Nate Oates' team did. That shows you how he wants to play. But when I look at this team, I am so impressed by what Pat Kelsey did this offseason. Steps up to the big leagues, is ready to go, has a plan, has discipline, knows what he wants, knows what he doesn't want, which I think is equally important. And so when I look at this offseason, everything is improved. I know I'm giving out a lot of good grades, but I got to go ahead and give an A- to the Louisville Cardinals. Could probably even be an A. Where you started, where you are now, with real veterans, have a real identity. And I'll be blunt, I think you have a chance to make a splash immediately in this ACC. The ACC is going to be weird this year. Yeah, you got Cooper Flagg and Duke. Yeah, you got Carolina bringing back a lot of guys. But after that, it gets a little bit sketchy. I know the ACC has had tournament success. NC State making a Final Four this year. A couple other teams have made runs through the years. But in the regular season, these programs are not elite outside of Duke and Carolina. I think Wake Forest could be good this year, but there isn't that clear 3rd team. I think Louisville potentially could be that 3rd team this year. So I love what Pat Kelsey did. By the way, last little thing, I haven't had a chance to watch the revival video yet. That is like Louisville's kind of play on, I think they did a behind the scenes of something. Haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But Pat Kelsey ain't afraid of that other program in that state. I love it. A- for Louisville, who I believe had an awesome offseason. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. College hoops, and we are getting ready for college football.